Okay, so now we're going to continue with the video of the Black Brit who is talking about America. And apparently, the FBA person found this very offensive and made a whole video about it, but never ever thinks about Black British people, but somehow is talking about them right now.
Restaurant in the kitchen at a family reunion and talked about Black Brits. Never. We don't even think about y'all. We don't compare. You're not a comparison.
I know I talked about this part, but it's very important to repeat that there is something interesting about him being proud of his ignorance about the rest of the world, and the fact that some people in America don't talk about Black British people. Now, of course, a lot of people actually do talk about Black British people in America, especially Black people, but he is actually proud of the idea that he has no idea what's going on in other countries, which I don't understand that type of mentality.
You're not a comparison. But see, it's the opposite where you're from. Y'all been sitting up for decades thinking, watching, and talking about Black Americans and what we got going on. In hating, jealousy, envy, just fuming at the mouth.
I'll be honest, I've seen individual arguments between specific Black people from Britain and specific Black people from America, but this idea that Black British people are hate Black Americans, or that Black Americans hate Black British, that's made up. That's some internet stuff. In real life, most Black people from Britain and most Black people from America can get along pretty well. And in fact, they probably can get along with each other better than they can get along with the other people in the respective countries.
You dig? So that insecure, that deep-seated insecurity about how we're always in the limelight, it gets to y'all. So you start projecting your insecurities onto us because you deep down inside think you're better.
So I can understand the logic that he's trying to paint here, but I think what he doesn't understand is how big America is outside of America. Like the people who talk about it. Now, of course, the UK is huge outside of the UK as well, and other places, Africa, all these places are big in different ways. America is really big for entertainment outside of America, whereas a place like the UK is big for like soccer and stuff like that. Um, Africa has got pretty good rugby. There's all kinds of things that makes these places popular all over the world. But the part that I think he is confused about, I don't know how to put this, but he's confused about is that I think he lives in a world of pure Americanness, and then he thinks that everybody in the world just thinks about America all the time. Now I understand again from that perspective how he could think, well, we're always in the limelight and everyone's always coming after us. So I can understand why he's confused about that. But in real life, people outside of, I don't know, I think most people in America think of places outside sometimes, but people outside of America, a lot of them, they think about different countries all the time. It's not that they're hating. It's not got nothing to do with that. It's just you have to. The world is connected in a very strong way.
So you say, hey man, they must think they're better than me. No, we don't think about you. We're not weirdos like many of y'all are. Y'all are weirdos. Y'all sit over there all damn day watching us, emulating us, talking like us, talking about how we ain't shit.
I mean, to be fair, this girl does not sound like she's trying to emulate any Americans at all. So, as an example, now obviously I know that there are some people from the UK who have like Americanness about them, and this is true for a lot of people around the world. And of course, things travel all over the world. I mean, we speak in English, which is not even which is from one place in the world. So I can understand again why he's like, oh, they're just copying us, they're trying to be like us, and blah, blah. But it's not true. What you don't understand is that the world is pouring into each other, and you're seeing the small parts that are related to you, and so you're highlighting those as like an important achievement, I guess. And also saying it, you're a weirdo for knowing what's going on in America, probably the richest country in the world. That's not weird. That's cautious, because if something terrible happens in America, everybody has to know. Otherwise, you won't know why certain things are happening in your country. And I don't mean small, like, I don't mean things that certain people have to pay attention to, like, oh, the price of this just changed, or, any of that. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about huge things that have changed. Like COVID-19 is a good example.
Don't know where we're from, we're dumb, and then you hop your ass across the pond and play us. And boy, that really bites y'all in the ass. Boy, that really makes y'all insecure.
Well, it would, but you do understand that there's people from America who've moved to places like the UK and stuff and played them, I guess is the word that is acted. Play us. You mean like a acting role, like when someone pretends to be someone they're not? Why is that weird?
Number three, you made this weird school comparison. You're the popular kid in school who's only popular because they have a pool. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We're that popular kid in school because everybody sees what we became despite of.
Well, to defend her analogy or whatever, what she was trying to say is including that as well. What she's trying to say is, you guys have certain things that everybody else wants to utilize, and you're making it as if it's your personage that is the most important, rather than they're trying to, a lot of these people, and in fact it's kind of a strange confession on her part, a lot of people are actually coming to drain the resources, just like how the popular kid in school, or one of the people who thinks they're popular in school, has a bunch of people show up to their house, but those people are really there to hang out with each other, not with that person, you know. But I don't even agree with that, what she was trying to say necessarily. But obviously, I agree with him that it is a thing of how well they have survived. But I think that's in there. It's not direct.
Let me say that again. Everybody in the whole world, not just the black diaspora, sees what black Americans became despite of.
I wish you were right. By the way, I wish you were right that actually that's how the world sees the black population in America. But I mean, go look at propaganda. Go look at how they actually portray Black Americans from Japan, China, India, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, America, South America, and North America. Go actually look at how they portray them and how they consider what they look like. It's filled with stereotypes and stuff like that. I agree with you that they should probably look at it for the achievements. They should probably think of Americans, and I even think that Americans should actually start thinking of themselves in this way. I do believe that a lot of them do, but I've seen enough to know that a lot of them don't. They should think of themselves as like, and I'm not telling anybody what to do, but an inventive race, a race of people that contributes heavily to modern science, a race of people who've contributed heavily to medicine, a race of people who've contributed to law, a race of people who have contributed heavily to all of these structures, especially in their own circles. And then being able to not only educate, but work with other countries, people who just happened to be in institutions, who didn't have institutional power, but happened to be in colleges and stuff like that, who helped people who had actual power in African countries take over. That's how they should be seeing themselves. But that's not how. If you believe that's how people actually see Black Americans around the world, then you are, I don't know. For the most part, I mean, I'm not even going to lie. This is the perception. The perception for the most part of Black people, whether they're from America, Africa, wherever, pick a country, they're literally seen as entertainers. It's the negative stereotypes, right? Violence, crime, blah blah, all of that, and then entertainers. Like make good music. They can be in movies sometimes. They've got writers, especially struggle stuff. Like people like uniting Black Africans from any country with struggle stuff. And I can see that from your perspective, you have a very different perspective, and that's good. But that's not how the world sees it.
We're that kid that you went to school with. You grew up with them. You've been going to school with them, elementary school, middle school, high school.
You know what's actually crazy? Like what he is saying right now is I can see that it's fitting 100% if he's talking directly to white people. Like it fits 100%. We went to school with him. He was poor. He didn't have the best clothes on. He whatever, and then he built himself into a great thing. I know that's what he's gonna say, but what does that have to do with Black Brits? Black Brits were in the same situation, and what does that have to do with anybody else really that he attacks?
And you remember in elementary school, you remember in pre-K when he lost his mother. You remember in kindergarten when he lost his father. They were stripped of him. He was stripped of his parents. You remember when he went to a foster home and he was raised in the projects. And he came in school with scars, with bruises, with bumps. You came in school hungry, didn't have nothing to eat. You did?
I do, but that would describe so many several different countries at the time. I mean, you know, Egypt was under control, North Africa was under control, Africa was under control, Ethiopia, well, the other places, the Swahili coast were under control, South Africa was under control. These places were getting dominated and genocided. They were losing tons of people. The numbers never seen before in history. And then, of course, the Black Brits are just surrounded. You're talking about people trying to like get rid of them for real. So I understand, but most of the stuff works on white people because white people actually did the stuff you're talking about. And so seeing like, oh, you guys were poor and then one day they grew out of that. No. And I'll give my version of an analogy of what happened with the Black Americans, and I'll give my version of what happened with Black Africans if we comparing them to the kid in school, which I don't know why we are. I don't know why your mind is still in school.
But despite all of that, he survived. Despite growing up in the belly of the beast of white supremacy, where all of y'all blame your problems, y'all blame America. It's
the belly of the beast, huh? The belly of the beast. You think having a sizable population in America is the belly of the beast? They live in Europe. In Europe, that's the belly of the beast. If you want to talk about belly of the beast in terms of like having people who actually want to see you get off of this planet, and they're literally right there. And we saw it with the Ukraine thing that was happening when they didn't want to rescue Black people. And he was about to say, this is who you guys blame. You guys all blame America. No, we don't. Not for white supremacy. There are countries in Europe that practice white supremacy in ways that America has never touched. We do not. Think of Berlin Conference. That's where it starts. That's where the real, like, proper, like, this is where we're going to screw the world for real comes from.
But despite all of that, he survived. despite growing up in the belly of the beast of white supremacy, where all of y'all blame your problems. Y'all blame America. It's the CIA. Y'all.
So I'm starting to see the problem here. The problem is not that this guy is trying to be mean or something. I think he's actually confused. I think he legitimately thinks that people think that America is the biggest white supremacist area and that they're white of all the countries that could be white supremacists and that are white supremacists. America is, if we put it in ranking, right? So Europe would be number one in white supremacy. America would be number two in white supremacy. Places like South America would be number three. And you'd be like, okay, why you put him in that rank? Because America has got a sizable mixed and non-white population, which means that they can have a say-so to some degree. In Europe, if they decide now we're done, that's it. And that has been the case for a long time. In places like Africa, of course, if we go back in time, right, they went from no white supremacy. So, in other words, the people, no matter how racist they were, which speaks to what we're talking about, not having institutional power, they couldn't do anything. They'd have to come there and bow down to black kings because it doesn't matter what they thought about because they held all the power. And then as soon as they could, they got the Berlin Conference. They came in, took everything over. We're like, what? You're going to see what we're going to do to you guys now. America was where during that time?
Always blaming us. That kid grew up in the belly of it. He didn't have no escape. It was just him. It was just FBA, 13% of the population. It was just us. But despite that, he made it to middle school. And when he made it to middle school, he had a little something about himself. You dig? He started to educate himself a little bit more. But the kid still couldn't read. We still couldn't read because why? In the foster home he grew up in, it was illegal to read. He could get harmed. He could get beat if he was caught with a book.
Again, this is copy paste. This is just taking stuff that relates to white people and then trying to put them onto black people. Firstly, black UK people or black Africans never harm nobody for trying to read. So I don't know what that has to do with us. But secondly, that history is very similar. You think they just let people get educated in Africa once they took over during slavery? You think they let the slaves just get educated so that they could free themselves? Everybody had the same thing. So this idea that you're living this unique history, and then of course it's like we live in the belly of the beast. We all blame America. No, we don't. We blame America for their part. We blame America for what they did. It's like saying Japan blames America for, the nuclear bomb. It's like, yeah, that's their part. America played a huge role in Japan's history. I mean, wasn't it Matthew Perry who forced them to open the borders for trade? And then, of course, it started a history where it ended up. If America had known that that was the direction, I wonder if they would have gone down that same line. But you don't blame people for things they didn't do. It's not blame too. Like the way you're saying it, like, oh, we're blaming them. No, that we're telling them what they're literally responsible for. In fact, they're telling us they've taken out the documents and said, yes, these were the plots against some African countries.
Let me translate that. On that slave plantation, we could get whipped if we were caught reading. We can get killed. We can get lynched. But despite of enough.
Well, I'm glad you educated us on that. As black people, we had no idea. You're saying so. Wait, let me make sure I get this right. I want to make sure I understand this. So during slavery, you could get lynched and you could get whipped. Uh, that's unique to America. That's something I've never heard of. When would they ever do something like that? They never did that in Africa. And they never did that after they got rid of it in America either. So I want to make sure I understand this perfectly. You're saying that you can get whipped in slavery. Okay, I got it. I got it now. Next time, I'm going to educate African people and let them know that don't worry, your history isn't as tough as American history. Over there, they can get slaved, they can get whipped, and they could get lynched. Unlike Africa or anywhere else where there were black people, where people were perfectly fine.
Of them made it through, despite of he read books in his off time. Despite of he still prioritized education, he was able to make it to high school. And in high school, you saw that young kid. He was reading now, making it out of slavery. We were reading now. We were forming historically black colleges across the country, education systems, even making the way in places like the South for the public school system because of the freedom schools we created.
Again, all great achievements, except if you consider the fact that the reason why he's saying this is trying to make it sound like it's unique to the Americas again. You know how many Africans educated themselves, how many people from the Caribbeans, the UK, the South American countries, the Middle East, so that they could proudly stand up and say, actually, we're here too, and we're not going anywhere.
We cut our literacy rate in half in a span of 2 or 3 decades after slavery. You see him, the way he's dressing, the way he's talking. You see the culture that he's creating from scratch because he was robbed of his mother and father, giving him that culture. So he's creating this culture from scratch. You see foundational black Americans creating things like the blues, the jazz, you dig? R&B. You see them having this soul. You see the people hating on him and he's still going to bat. He's still fighting.
I love how he says, you see the people hating on him. What people? You mean white people, right? Because if we bring it back to the school, then it'll be very easy, right? There's black people in the school, and then there's white people in the school, and the white people are the bullies of the school, and then at some point the black people bind together and end up being very popular in the school. That would be my comparison.
They're excluding him from certain circles and he's building his own circles. So much so that they get jealous of that. See, they were kicking us out the towns, the white parts of towns. We said, okay, we'll create a Tulsa, Oklahoma. We'll create a Black Wall Street. We'll create a Rosewood. We'll create a Jackson Ward. We'll create an Auburn Avenue. We'll go out. Even when you put me in the worst part of the classroom, you give me the worst textbooks. We created a Blacknum, New Mexico. Okay? We got the worst resources.
This is a very important thing that he's saying, but it is the best way to say it to a black person who's trying to be an actor in America. Like, is that really the best way to send the message out there? To be like, no, we need to fight with black British people. You know why? Because white people didn't like us.
Didn't have a real environment to go home to. You've seen foundational black Americans, though, taking swamp land, like in Mound Bayou, Mississippi, draining that swamp and creating what President Roosevelt called the jewel of the Delta. Mound Bayou, a sanctuary for black folks in the belly of the beast, in the heart of white supremacy in the Mississippi Delta.
That's the belly of the beast in America. That's not the belly of the beast everywhere. And you've just made up this idea that America had it worse than everybody else. I mean, literally, other people still have not recovered from what happened, and it's not because of a lack of talent or anything like that. It's literally, it's like, I don't even like doing these comparisons, but let's do it. It's like, let's take Native Americans for example, right? Native Americans, what they did to them, you can't really come back from that. But is that because of a lack of talent? Is that because they haven't shown that they were capable of creating mega cities and stuff like that? No, the devastation is staggering. We're talking about it in the two continents. Two continents, really. I mean, they call it one, the Americas, but it's really two continents. What do you think happened to those people that made them not be able to bounce back the same way that any of those groups that you're talking about is. Because everybody else is bouncing back now that white supremacy is receding. China's bouncing back, India's bouncing back, Africa's bouncing back.
So we seen that kid, despite of getting picked on, despite of getting bullied, he still rose up to the top and created this culture that we love. Despite of the obstacles that were thrown against him, you had him inventing and innovating. When white supremacists said, hey man, you can't go in this hospital. Well, fuck you. I'm going to build my own hospital. Shout out to Daniel Hale Williams. Created Providence Hospital, one of the first hospitals in Chicago. That same Daniel Hale Williams, when black folks couldn't get health care, couldn't get treatment, this was the man who pioneered and created the first open heart surgery. You got brothers like Charles Drew, created the blood transfusion. You got sisters like Maria Van Brown, when security was a concern in our neighborhood, who created the home security system. You got brothers like George Speck, created the potato chip.
I'm only jumping in here because I find it funny which one he put sort of last. Here's the thing. Start slow and then go up and up. Don't start up and then go down. Don't go from surgery to electronics and then go to a potato chip. I'll be honest, potato chip is not that impressive compared to the other ones you just mentioned.
We that kid in school who got it out the mud. And now, by the time he gets a senior, by the time he gets in college, you see what that kid has become now. You see all he has accomplished. And everybody in the world takes inspiration because they say, hey, he really got it out the mud. And now he got that house on the hill with that beautiful pool. And then there's you.
Brought it back around with the pool. It's a cool story, except everybody's got their own pool right now, really. Now that everybody's sort of matured, they're not really going to your parents' pool. They might visit, but as this girl is, but black British people are not poor necessarily comparatively.
The hating niggas sitting on the side when you know our story, hating. Well, he got a pool. The white man gave him that pool, though. Ain't white man ain't gave us nothing.
Damn, Scott's really angry at this point. She didn't say that the white man gave you the pool. She says you just happen to have a pool. And again, I'm not even defending her at this point. I'm just defending the idea that black Brits are like this in general. I don't understand it. And like, oh, you're angry because we've got a pool. They've got a pool of their own too. It's just if you want to be an actor, then you're gonna go to America. Just like if you're an Indian in any part of the world and you want to be an actor, you're gonna go to Bollywood. Or really, if you're anybody, you could go there as well. That doesn't mean that India has got a pool and every other place does not. That has Indians. I mean, plenty of places that have Indians. I think South Africa is the second largest population with Indians, and they have a pool here.
He ain't gave us nothing. You dig? And the reason you hate even more is because even though we got that house on the hill, even though we got that Olympic-sized swimming pool now, we still will come off that house on the hill. We still will jump out that pool and stand on business and crash out about our people. And we still fighting to this day because enough of our people don't have them houses on the hill. That's why we're the most popular kid in school. That's why we're the most popular group of black people around the world.
You have a house on the hill and you still go to school. Let's leave that part alone. But let's go straight to that. We're the most popular black people in the world. No. The most popular black people in the world are Africans. I'm sorry to say it. Like, I apologize. It's just like a thing. Like, obviously, black Africans are going to be more popular. It's the factory. It's where they pump them out. It's where we come from. And also, there's more that relates to Africa with the rest of the world than America relates in terms of history, geography, blah, 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 blah. Pick one. a lot of things relate. America relates in mainly politics, but it's not right there for the rest of the country. It's really the new world. It's really over there. It's like Australia. It's over there. And again, we've done this on ChatGPT. We've seen that people know Africans, Black Africans, way more than they know any regional African outside of Africa. And why wouldn't they? That would be stupid of them not to know. We are a very important set of people.
That's why people emulate us and want to be us. It's impossible to really hate on us. You have to make up a lie. You have to live in fantasy land. You have to live in delusion because we got it out the mud.
Well, I agree with that part, that if you want to hate Black Americans, you have to sort of live in delusion. Now, the only unfortunate thing you said there, or the incorrect thing you said, is that it's impossible. No, it's possible to live in delusion. And remember the white people that lynched? Yeah, they lived in delusion. Remember the other white people who have a problem with the white people who live in Europe who barely interact with Black Americans, but somehow have all these stereotypes about Black Americans. Those guys too. Which, by the way, she hasn't even expressed one of those stereotypes. Somehow you put her on the same level of, as the white supremacists. I mean, think about the type of anger you have for her and how it's being wasted when you have people like Saga Novak and you have people like, I forgot what that other guy is who's like claims that he's like Norse or whatever. He says he likes Celtic religion or whatever. You have all of these people who are literally getting on the internet using American stereotypes, now exporting them to Africa as well, talking about how Black people are not family oriented or any of these stupid things that they say. And the person you're getting angry at is another Black person. You know what really pisses me off? And it's something that I have to address. It's the mainstreaming of people like Nick Fuentes, the return of racism, which is coming back strong, where they're trying to sell these guys, slip them under the door, slip them under the covers, make sure that they can come over and continue saying and being barbaric around Black people. And I'm gonna react to someone who I think knows better, but for some reason, yeah, Nick Fuentes, come on. And by the way, you can say like, "Oh, but you're reacting to a Black guy now." How many white people do I react to?
Hell is you mad about us for? Some of y'all descendants of the people who sold us out.
Yeah, again, this is a complete misunderstanding of history. There was no selling y'all out in the past. Those people, those slaves that were sold by Black Africans to Europeans, one, the Europeans were forcing the hand at some point, but two, a lot of them were going to kill the other people. It was going to be us or them type situation. It's not like these guys came, found a bunch of people who are just chilling, who are just sitting down having a nice time, and then they were like, okay, let's enslave all of these. No, the demand for slavery, for the most part, first it happened because the Europeans came there, but then secondly, it was, oh, we just want a war against these guys. We could stick him in a prison and then guard them for the rest of their lives, or we could sell them, not knowing their true fate on the other side. And then, of course, when that became obvious, there became a Black consciousness, which, by the way, if you want to, you can break it down so that they can redo it again. They can now re exploit the fact that Black people were not united.
We don't only go against white supremacy, we have to go against our own people who continue to push white supremacist tropes on us.
You mean the tropes like saying that Black Africans did slavery too, so it doesn't matter that slavery happened in America? You mean that kind of trope? Or what about the trope where they sort of make Nigerians seem like they're just a bunch of criminals? Like the previous video I reacted to when you said that, or portraying the poverty in Africa as if it's just a lack of people doing stuff, when you know when you know damn well that white supremacy is doing it, or defending the CIA. I don't know what that's about. You mean tropes like that? So here he plays a copyrighted song, and on the side, obviously, he shows very beautiful images of black people who in America have done great things. And I'll quickly sum up what he says. He says, we basically we did big great things, we did this, we did that, we have all these great creators from our side. And then he says that's why we have an amazing pool, which again is cool, but I don't know why that's being used as a stick to beat black people from around the world.
At what they do. And it's not to say Black Americans aren't exceptional, because they are. They're just not more exceptional than the rest of the Black diaspora.
Well, would you look at that? She just said it. All the things that you just went off about, yeah, they do. What black person doesn't think that black Americans are not exceptional? But again, they're not going to say you're more exceptional, because 90% of the stuff you guys went through and overcame, it's the same in other places. And 90% of the stuff that they put you through, the poverty, the lies, the stealing of inventions, the all of that, everybody had to fight with it. We know that in Britain they used to steal ideas from black people, and then, the guy would stop existing. We know that in Africa they did that. We know that even now, it's hard for me to even talk about history, because I have to walk a line where, I mean, people go, you don't have to, but I have to walk a line where I have to sort of talk about Africa and Africans in Europe in a specific way where it's not too diluted in one way or the other. But because the history, they've held it for so long, and now they're building a giant whatever in Egypt so that they can continue to spread propaganda. And I love last time he said the only place that can compete with them is the ancient Egyptians. Really? Everybody has contributed. Black people have shown to be exceptional. I don't know, this sounds cruel. When other people fell completely and have disappeared forever as a race, we're still here on multiple continents, even though we are a target. That's exceptional. Middle Eastern black people. This is why I keep talking about them. They're exceptional. They're on TV. They're famous. In a country of people who for the longest time did not consider them human. They were famous when they were saying that they're not human.
The thing is, they are being exceptional in a country that has the world's eyes on it. And the reason why...
Well, also, America has a fairly large population. So because they have an extremely large population, it makes a huge difference on, the success rate of different places. So being famous in Europe is different than being famous in one country in Europe. And in America, we're talking about like 300 and something million people. That's why places like Japan, even though they do like the international success, they can survive just doing Japanese stuff, not making an English version, because there's like 100 and something million of them. That's why China can survive. That's why India can survive.
America has the world's eyes on it is because all the money and power from slavery went to America, and Americans are living in America.
I mean, as confusingly complicated as she's sort of putting it, it's actually a very simple thing that she's saying, that yes, because of the bump up through slavery and other things, America has become a superpower. I mean, really the one of two great richest nations in the world, China and America. And because of that, it has become a problem or a solution, depending on how you look at it.
You literally Black Americans live in a country that has been propped up the most by slavery.
I'll slightly disagree with that because obviously so many of these other countries benefited a lot from slavery. Now, a lot of these countries, they like to make this thing like if you go look at the percentages, you'll notice that England that they were using slave goods, and those slave goods were being utilized in a way. And then when you take it all together, when they count slave contributions, they only put it as like things they did directly. They don't talk about the fact that that same product would then be in something else and something else and something else. And if it wasn't for here, then that, then they don't talk about that. In Europe, slavery played a huge role. I mean, again, the rubber thing is huge.
But let's be clear, the difference between America and like Jamaica and all the other countries is because all the money from Caribbean slavery didn't go to the Caribbean. If the money from Caribbean slavery went to the Caribbean and the Caribbean was propped up like America, then all eyes would be on the Caribbean as well.
I mean, he can't possibly disagree with what she said. I want to see what angle he's going to come from, but it is true that the drainage of that area did leave it hungry, because the talent there and stuff like that to put eyes on it is ridiculous again. And of course it is. It's black people.
Lord. So let me get this straight, family. The reason why America has the influence it has is because of the money generated from slavery. But that money actually stayed in America. And the reason why the Caribbean or Central and South America, wherever Black folks were enslaved across the Americas, don't have that same level of influence is because that money actually went to Europe or elsewhere.
Or temporary European holdings in very small locations. Whereas in America, what she means is obviously it just benefited America directly. Whereas in those other parts, they didn't need full stations in the way that they had in America, these super states and super cities and stuff like that. I think that's what he means. But of course, South America shouldn't include, because South America also directly benefited from slavery in a very, very, very direct way.
She's actually correct. She's actually correct. See, what she's saying is correct, but the context in which she's thinking about it is wrong. But it actually shows, and it is a microcosm of the difference between foundational Black Americans and the diaspora. See, we understand what you said. We are the influence of America. When you talk about it's because of the money generated from slavery, we are the money.
Okay, I love the fact that he agreed with her. But again, I feel like he feels like he's educating her. And clearly, again, she knows the information, and she's saying that yes, they are, I mean, not the money, but they are the source of the money. They are the genuine creator of wealth in that area. In fact, they are the genuine creator of just about anything about that culture.
You see, foundational Black Americans, we understand we are that money. We are the people who built America. We are why America has influence. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret, because I want to see brothers and sisters really around the world win. You are the money of the Caribbean. But like you said, that money went to Europe.
Okay, but don't agree with her aggressively. She is just saying the actual history, and it feels like you agree with her. And the point of it is very, very obvious. It's very obvious what she's saying.
See, your brightest, your best, you flee. The people who actually have a means to actually make change in your country, they flee and go to Europe.
I was wondering how he was going to find a way to disagree with her somehow. So he just brought out the FBA classic, calling people fleers, saying that if you leave a sticky situation to go learn or possibly work elsewhere, you're just fleeing. which would mean that every person in the world is a fleer except, people who just stay in an area, which doesn't make any sense. A lot of these quote unquote fleers, they bring money back to their original nations by going to these other places. The reason why the money left the Caribbean and left the other is not because black people fled. The money went there because the money was to generate for that area.
Okay, they flee and go to Sweden, go to Germany. You go to all these other places. Y'all be in the damn Ukraine. Y'all be in Scotland. Y'all be everywhere else. You have a fleeing mentality. So you're right.
What's he talking about saying that only they flee? Does he know that there's black Americans in the Ukraine? Does he know there's black Americans in Russia? Does he know there's black Americans in Sweden? Does he know there's black Americans in Africa, in China, in India? Does he think that black Americans don't leave America?
Your money did leave. Your money did go to Europe. Your brightest minds, your scholars, your historians, your economists, your inventors, y'all flee. We don't. That's why.
On this fleeing topic, I want to talk about one of my favorite inventors to ever exist, because again, taking us out of the dark and bringing us into the light. His name is Lewis Latimer. And according to this guy, Lewis Latimer fled. So Lewis Latimer, noted black inventor Lewis Latimer, visited the UK in 1882 to oversee the installation of the electric lights for the Maxon Western Electric Light Company, where he taught workers the process of creating and installing light bulbs with a durable carbon filament. His trip to London involved challenges. This guy, and obviously you can see I chose him because he related to the UK as well, but this guy would be considered a fleer by the standards of this FBA chase. And I don't know why. Why would this guy be considered a fleer? And also he's like, oh, we never leave. It's like, they do leave. They just go there and go back. You think people who leave the Caribbean never go back? You think people who leave Africa never go back? You know how many people come back in Africa with like British accents? You think black people who leave for the Middle East never come back? They don't flee. There's no flee. And then secondly, there's a much larger number of these people than there are of African Americans. So some of them can afford to just stay in those countries for generations. And then everywhere there's a black population. So you can find home in different areas. But I guess, that's just fleeing. You're just running away. I don't understand that whole thing, which, by the way, they throw on anybody. I know I'm making it sound like they say black people flee, but they say everybody flees except for them, even though I can find you hundreds of examples of very successful black people who moved to another country, including European countries.
That money stayed. Because, see, right after enslavement, when Abraham Lincoln became, as our great ancestor Frederick Douglass once said, a colonization preacher, and he was trying to pack up and send foundational black Americans to colonies in South America, trying to send us to Haiti, X, Y, and Z. We said, hell no. You dig?
Yeah, but then later, the American Association sent black slaves to Liberia. So are you disrespecting those ancestors and saying they're fleers? The tens of thousands of slaves who were sent back to Africa and basically started their own thing, create with Monrovia and all these other things. Now, of course, these people started enslaving the native Africans, which is not the coolest thing they could have done. But yes, are you calling them fleers? There are people in America who leave. I'm sorry.
Frederick Douglass said this man is a colonization preacher trying to tell foundational Black Americans to flee the country, to flee the country that they actually built. No. Yeah, the money did stay in America. We are the money. And that.
But they also left and went to places like Liberia. In Liberia, which you can tell by the name Liberty, it comes from the fact that they were freed. So, yeah.
That's why America has the influence, as you said. You have no influence because you flee. See, your best and brightest ran. They went to other places around the world to make those places profitable, to make those places modern.
Fled to a different country to make the places modern, to make the places profitable. Fled to another country to make those places profitable and to make those places modern. I'm just saying what he said. I haven't even said anything different. He is literally insulting people like Lewis Latimer, who went overseas for a job. This is ridiculous.
To give them their wealth. Even you, ma'am, look at you. You are a phenomenal Black British actor, according to you. You are a comedian. You ain't living in Africa. You folks are EBAs, y'all everywhere but Africa. We're FBAs, we're foundational Black Americans.
Firstly, there's a ton of UK Black people who act in African media. I mean, there was one woman who tragically died in Somalia. She was a Canadian YouTuber, and she was getting more and more popular by showcasing Somalia. And again, there's people from Japan who work in South African media. There's people who are from wherever, pick a country, who work in African media. But you have no idea because, again, you speak one language and da-da-da-da-da. And so you obsess over your own country and you think that everything you believe is true, even though you have no real context. Half the languages of the world you're blocked out of, so you can't even think about them.
We're foundational to the country we built. Y'all are EBAs. You're everywhere but Africa. You love Africa so much, but you're everywhere but there. So yes, ma'am, you are correct. But I want you to do a deep analysis and listen to what you're actually saying. And really break it down. You are the money. Why the hell are you in Europe?
Isn't she technically in America? Isn't that what she said? That she moved to America?
Go back and build your homeland like we did. We made sure that wealth, the money, it stayed in the country that we built.
How do you know she's not going to do that? How do you know she's not planning on doing that or even doing that right now? Also, what is her homeland? Didn't she say her mother lives in England? So what is her homeland? I don't know. I didn't hear her say her homeland. It could be anywhere.
That's the difference between us and you. And this is why we say in America, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. When we say that, we're saying, hey, man, y'all might have the same skin complexion, but your mentality is different. You don't even know you the money.
Okay, but wasn't that the point of her video, saying that Americans think differently than the rest of the diaspora? So you're now agreeing with her that you guys are not necessarily the same just because you have the same skin color. This is going in a weird direction. I'm going to make another video on this in the final part because he's going to switch topics again.
We know we're the money. And we know that money that we created, we're going to make sure it circulate right here in America. And we're going to make sure it reaches the hands of foundational Black Americans. And that is exactly why we're delineating. But let's continue.
Okay, but isn't one of the big problems right now going on in America the fact that Black Americans, even though they're a huge consumer base of American products, that they buy from anyone but black people, that they have, they enrich these other people who can't wait to station themselves in black areas because they know they're going to make stupid amounts of money. You can't just say stuff and just leave as if it's like a fact without. What do you talk? We've got tons. There's tons of documentaries coming out of America talking about this, talking about how fast the dollar leaves the black community. But I get it. I get that you have to twist information in order to try and seem better than other black people around the world.
From African colonization went to Africa instead of Europe, and Africa was propped up by colonization and slavery, just like America is. The whole world's eyes would be on Africa.
Unfortunately, what she's saying is absolutely correct in history, because what happened in history was, because any exploitation that people talk about, we were doing it ourselves. And so we became extremely wealthy, which is one of the reasons why they like to point out corruption in Africa, because they don't want the Africans, even the exploiting ones, to be the 1% that dominates. But we'll get back to that in another conversation. When we were dominating our own sections before the 1800s, in the late 1800s, when they started taking over, those places were stupid rich because they were selling slaves, they were selling gold, they were selling items, they had all kinds of things going on. And so the exploitation started first and foremost with people getting extremely rich within Africa. And then they had the Berlin Conference, and they were like, nah, we got to take everything.
But because the only country that has a predominantly like big black community in it that has been propped up the most by slavery and had the money actually returned back to the country is America.
So again, what she's saying in an odd way is she's trying to say that America is a very popular country and there are people that are getting propped up and stuff like that. And her perspective, I don't even agree with what she's saying. But what she is saying is important in that if the money comes back, those people will be a dominant area. I think she is neglecting, of course, to say that, black people have been suffering in America for the longest time ever. It's not like slavery happened, they have lots of money, and so black Americans had a lot of money. A lot of that money they had to fight for. A lot of that money they're still fighting for.
That is why America is a superpower it is.
Right, because of foundational black Americans did not flee. We stayed there and continued to build and continue to create the culture that y'all now credit with being American culture. Create the economy that y'all now credit with just being an American economy. Create the holidays, customs, and traditions that you now credit with just being American holidays, customs, and traditions. We are different. And see, the thing is, even
that's not different. Like I said, the post banks, the post offices that would later become real post offices, they came from ideas from the Swahili coast. Pick something. There's lots of things about traditional European life. People forget that because Europe was an international power, they picked up a lot of their traditions from outside of their nation. There was a lot to pick from. That's not different. It's the same. A lot of the stuff that you just call whatever culture actually comes from somewhere else, somewhere around the world.
Even those of you who stayed in the Caribbean, even those of you who stay in Africa, you're mentally checked out. You mentally fled as well.
What the hell does that mean? Mentally checked out, mentally fled. You mean so the people who stay here and have an international mind, they've fled? So everybody just fled. There's nobody in Africa anymore because everybody just fled. Some fled with the mind, others fled with the body. You're just trying to make it fit what you're trying to talk about. People didn't flee. They just went to a different country. They have dual citizenship. They have all kinds of stuff that makes them belong still to Africa and then belong to Europe. They have family members in those countries which they can always visit, even a generation later. I think what's really happening is that you're trying to force this opinion, and that's why you're saying people are mentally checked out. You have no idea how people are living, and these so-called mentally checked out people. Do you, we've done this before, but do you even know what people are doing in Africa right now, building buildings and all that? You think that those guys are checked out? People making roads in places where there are no roads. When you think they are really checked out? Do you even understand the majority of the answers that African kids give when it comes to what they would do or what they are going to do once they become successful? None of them it's move to America and be mentally checked out.
We talk about the physical fleers, but what about the mental fleers? See, the mental fleers are y'all sitting over there in Britain, and instead of figuring out how we can come together and help to build our homelands that you're always repping and claiming, how can we build Jamaica? How can we build Tanzania? How can we build Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria? You're sitting over there mentally in America. You're mentally fled. You're worried about us. You hating on us from overseas. You hating on us from down the street all the way outside the club.
Meanwhile, he would never talk about any other country except America and black people in America and how it fixed their problems. He would never, like, for example, address an actress from the UK who's making a barely coherent sentence about how she's struggling to live in another country. That type of stuff. He would never engage and like talk about South Africa, for example, and sort of like talking down on poor people. He would never, instead of doing that, he's gonna try to fix his own country. Yeah.